All right, how's it going, everyone? So I have here a Jeep with a hydraulic issue with the clutch. So if I were to start it, I will not be able to get it into gear. So the clutch is all the way in. I know you can't really see it, but I got the clutch pedal all the way in and I can't get it into gear. Now the clutch pedal itself is sort of sticking to the floor, so I actually have to use my left foot to pop up back the pedal. So that's an indication that there's a hydraulic issue. The slave cylinder or master cylinder is leaking down. Now in this situation the car can't move, but there is a way to get it to move without having the clutch. So what you're going to do is you're going to shut it off. You're going to put it in the gear that you want to be in this case we want to be in reverse, try to get it out of this spot, and then you're going to start it. Now this has a neutral safety switch, so I have to have the clutch pedal completely depressed or all the way down to start the vehicle, and I'm going to be on the right foot with my brake and just and rolling over to the gas just in case. Now the reason why I have to do this is it's going to start to go the second I start to turn the starter motor. It's not great for the clutch, but it will get you out of, you know, where you're stuck on the side of the road or something like that. So we'll start it up. So right there it starts to go, and again the clutch is still all the way down, but I'm able to get the Jeep to move. Now I still can't get it out of gear, so I have to shut it off to get it out of gear and then put it into first and do the same thing to get it to move again. So we'll get it racked up and inspect for hydraulic leaks. We're going to start our inspection up here at the master cylinder. So this is our brake master cylinder reservoir with our brake master cylinder right below that. This little rubber hose feeds down to the clutch master cylinder. And the clutch master cylinder has a line right down there that's a quick fitting that goes down to the clutch actuator. Now our reservoir is shared with the brake master cylinder, and the brake level is right about there. So we don't have a fluid loss that's causing it to completely go dead or down, but it is enough of an issue to where we do need to pull the actuator out and look. Now the other thing to note is this is a newer looking reservoir, and I've also noticed too that another tech has rounded that off for me to make it easier for me to not be able to get those off if I need to. Conveniently, I shouldn't have to, but it is something to note if you're a technician working in a shop. Make sure you note that down so that you don't get blamed for it. This vehicle did just come from another shop, so cover yourself with that so you don't get yourself in any trouble. So we'll lift the vehicle up and then inspect the actuator. I've unbolted the throw-out bearing actuator to inspect it, and we can see there's a bunch of fluid leaking down out of the end of this. So this bolts to the case right here on these two studs, and the actuator, when you press the clutch pedal, sends hydraulic pressure down through that line that comes from the master into this cylinder, and then that pushes against this rod that then presses against the shift fork, or not shift fork, the throw-out bearing fork, and that releases the clutch. So because we have hydraulic fluid coming out of there, you can see that it just leaked all over my hand. That's an indication that's our fail point. So in situations like this, you do have to be cognizant, and there is fluid leaking down from the bell housing, that potentially this might have gotten fluid onto the clutch disc, which could cause the clutch disc to fail prematurely. The fact that I was able to get it to move relatively easy in gear without using the clutch is a strong sign that the clutch is okay. So we're gonna have to fix the hydraulic system first and then drive it and then see if it's good. Now you can, you know, remove the transmission and inspect the clutch if that's going to be the case, but in this situation we don't want to waste the customer's money needlessly. So we're gonna replace the clutch actuator and master cylinder. So I have our two parts right here. Here's our failed part, or the replacement for our failed part, our clutch actuator. Now I'm also going to be replacing the master cylinder for the clutch system as well. The reason why I'm doing this is usually if this one has a leak, the actuator has a leak, the master has a possibility of going dry and wrecking the seals inside of it, and vice versa can happen. If this has a leak, this can go dry and cause the seals to fail. These parts aren't very expensive, and it's usually a good idea just to replace both at the same time. So the only thing that we have that we're not replacing in the hydraulic system is the hydraulic line that goes in between those. So a new rubber line comes to go to the master cylinder, and then we also have our neutral safety switch that's already attached here. So what I'll do now is I will bolt this up to the transmission and install the line with the quick fitting. It's got a little quick fitting right there that allows it to come in and out. And then the master cylinder, I'm definitely not going to film because these are a push lock designed. So you push in to lock them in, and I don't really want to film myself swearing non-stop. The only other thing you gotta watch for, and again, this is going under the car, which I probably won't film, which is unpinning this little eyelet against the clutch pedal rod. Now it's just going to be a pull, so you just get a tool or a wedge to pop it off the other side, and it comes right out. So I'll get to installing these, and then we'll bleed the clutch system and test to see if the clutch disc is okay. So I've gone through and replaced the clutch master cylinder and the throw-up bearing actuator. I've gone through and topped off the brake reservoir. That's a shared reservoir with the clutch with .3 brake fluid in preparation for bleeding the system now. So we're gonna have to bleed the clutch system with brake fluid to get all the air out of it so that the clutch will still activate. So I have the old actuator right here, and the bleeder is right here on the end. Now these are pretty common now on modern vehicles for clutch systems, is they're just 90-degree little bleeders. So the way they work is they just turn 90 degrees and they're fully open. So there's a couple different ways to bleed these type of clutches. Clutches are a little bit harder to bleed than brakes. Factory wants you to use a vacuum pump of some sort. So I have a pneumatic vacuum pump with a rubber adapter that will go over the bleeder port, and then this will simply suck fluid from the reservoir through the master into the actuator and get the air out. The other way to do it is to pump the clutch pedal just like you would the brakes if this was a brake system. The difference with that though is you're going to have a long period where it's going to take a while for air to bleed through. So what I like to do if you don't have a pneumatic suction gun for a vacuum pump is you install everything and then you open up the bleeder and let it sit for a couple minutes, 20-30 minutes, until fluid starts to come out. So usually what I'll do is I'll put a vacuum line onto a water bottle to collect any fluid so I don't make a mess on the ground. That will you know, gravity bleed it, and then you can go through and pump the pedal. So I'm going to go through and use the vacuum pump, and then I'll go through again, and I always like to do it with another person in the car just to bleed it the conventional way. All right, so Jeep didn't really do us any favors. The transfer case shift cable, it goes right over the bleeder, so I have that pushed out of the way. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna install my end for the bleeder, turn it 90 degrees, and then connect my pneumatic pressure to my vacuum canister, and I'm gonna watch this clear section of the hose until fluid starts to come through, and then I'm gonna stop. It's really important, you wanna make sure you don't run the reservoir dry. It's very easy to do with one of these vacuum systems. So if you can have some sort of system to pre-fill the master cylinder reservoir as it drains out, that would be ideal. So at this point, I have a really steady stream of fluid coming through, brake fluid. So I'm going to close my bleeder off and then disconnect my vacuum pump. And from there, then we'll do one more manual bleed. So now I have an assistant in the car to help me bleed the clutch of all of its air. So what we're going to do is it's the same process in bleeding the brakes. I have a water bottle with a vacuum hose set up to catch any of the fluid. They're going to pump the clutch pedal 3 times and then hold it. I'm going to open the bleeder up, and when it goes to the floor, they're going to let me know. So go ahead and pump the pedal up. All right, so nothing came out there, so we'll close it back up, and now the assistant can start pumping again. All right, now we're starting to get some fluid through the reservoir and into the actuator. So we'll complete this a couple more times until we have the system fully bled. We've completed bleeding the clutch system of air. So now the test to see that if it works initially and you don't have to have bleed it again is if the trans is in neutral, start the vehicle. And if you can get it into gear with the clutch in, which I can easily, is first, there's second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and reverse, you should be good. That's the thing I like to test first and foremost, is if you can start it and get it in gear, you have almost all of the air bled out. Now the pedal does feel pretty firm for one of these Jeeps. We're going to test to make sure we can get it to move. So we're in reverse right there, and we're moving with it actuating pre-80 pretty normal. We have about a inch of end play of the clutch pedal, so I'm moving forward. So what I'll have to do now is I'll have to test drive it and make sure the clutch isn't slipping. If it's not slipping, then the repair is good. I'll readjust the reservoir level and we can return the car to the customer. So this is one of those things too. If you wanted to go above and beyond, you can remove the transmission and inspect the clutch, but I always like to do this first. That way we don't have to replace the clutch unnecessarily. This cuts about $1,000 in labor and parts off the repair bill just in doing that. So we should be good with this vehicle. We'll give it a good test drive and should be done and move on to the next one. So appreciate you all taking the time to watch the video, and we'll see you in the next one.